Okay, so although this is numbered 2 in the series, these videos are not dependent upon each other. They each stand alone, but I put them in part of a playlist so it's easier for you guys to track. So first of all, this is probably a little bit hard to see. It's kind of small for a tutorial. So if you go up here to View and you click on Zoom, you have a custom zoom, and you can just put in a percent. Totally arbitrary, but let's do 125 and then click on OK. As you can see, it zoomed in, and so it's a little bit easier to read now. Now, just to be clear, this really doesn't change the formatting because everything changed proportionately. So all the columns became wider, taller, all the text became a larger font. So it's displaying everything proportionately differently. And usually formatting is when you're doing something to just one part. Like for instance, you're having text to be underlined, or you're having text to be bold or centered. So this, you've really just changed the entire. You really just zoomed in on the spreadsheet. So let's go to Home. And let's look at a few functions. So say this is going to be a date column. So we're going to type out date. And then we're going to type out the first date, 06/01/2017. Well, that's kind of close. So maybe you don't want the cell to be that small. You've got a few choices. If you point at the border between two cells, you see the line, the cursor change. If you left click, hold, drag, and let go, you've increased the size of that column. Let's undo that. Say you want to do that with a bunch of columns. Left click on a column, this time more towards the middle, okay? Drag and let go, and you can do the same thing. You can point at any one of those borders, click, drag, let go, they all change. Let's undo that. One more way of doing the same thing, right click, choose column width, and then you can just manually enter the width. Now, maybe you don't want this left aligned and this right aligned because you can see this is pushed to the left and this is pushed to the right. Excel automatically does that based on data type. So you can override that. So say you click on this column. Here is the alignment section in the Home tab. If you click this one for center, it centers it. Now, say you've got a whole bunch of dates and you don't want to manually type them in. So if you left click, if you point at this little corner, you can drag, you can see it turns into like a plus sign. You left click, hold, drag, and let's go all the way down to 32 and watch what happens. It creates sequential dates. You don't have to manually type it in and accidentally miss one, and not to mention take them on a time to do the data entry. It will sequentially write it out for you, and it will in fact automatically go into the next date, the next month. Now that one it will do automatically for you. It won't necessarily do that for other types of data. So say you just type in the number 1. Click on it, point at the corner, becomes a plus sign, drag it down all the way down, and as you can see in this case, it did not do it sequentially. But you've got this little menu down here, autofill option. So if you click on this, it's set to copy cells, where you can choose fill series, fill formatting only, fill without formatting, and flash fill. So watch what fill series does. Fill series is what this did by default. I think in older versions of Excel, if you're using a number, it will automatically do the series just as it did with the date. So at work, I believe we use 2013, and a number, I believe, a number will indeed pre-fill just like the date. Okay, but say you don't have a need for a number. I just wanted to show you how that, another example of how that works. So I highlighted the column and I hit delete. And let's get rid of July 1st. I just wanted to show you that that properly would go into the next month. All right, so we looked at zooming in, we looked at some alignment, and we looked at a series pre-fill. Now let's look at a few other things. Now, say that you want to actually extract the month from this. There's a couple ways to do it. You can extract the number of the month, or you can extract the name of the month. Typically, I think people would rather see the name of the month rather than the number. Now, you have to be careful because if you use formatting, you can make this display the month, but the source data is still the full date. And then if you try charting that or manipulating that some way, you won't get the results you want. I'll show you what I mean. So click on this, A2, and here's another shortcut. If you press and let go of the N key, hold down Shift, and then press down the down arrow, you go down to, you select everything. You go down to the bottom of the area. So again, that was press and release End, hold Shift, keep holding it, and press the down arrow. And now we're going to right click and we're going to choose Format Cells. So if you go to the Number tab, okay, you could do a Custom. And then where it says Type here, you can do MMMM. And even here in the sample, it's showing you what you'll get. So go ahead and click on OK. It says June. Great, so you're tracking something's happened in June. Here's the problem though. If you click on it, see the source data is still the date. The source data is still the date. The source data is still the date. So depending on what you do with this, you might not get the results that you want because Excel is still showing you, it's still storing the full date. It's just showing you the month. So you actually might not want to format. You might want to do something different. You might actually need to create a new value. So we're going to click here, and it's going to type up here because I don't want to expand the column. I can if you want, but like I said, there's nothing wrong with getting used to seeing it type up here. So when you're not entering an exact value, when you want a calculation or a function, you need to indicate that to Excel. So drop in an equal sign if you're doing a calculation of some kind. And now what we're going to do is we're going to type in the word text, and you can see there's a pre-existing function for text. So you can click on that. What we want is we want the text from A2. We want it from here. So A2, comma, and now you format it. So you do quotes and then MMMM, quote, and then enter. And now you have June. Now, this is still a calculation, so you have one more step, which we'll get to in a moment, but now at least you don't have that date. You have the word June. We just have to do one more step to actually change it to June. So with this selected, you can either on the keyboard hold Control, the CTRL key, and click C for copy. I actually don't like the keyboard shortcuts for copy and paste because the buttons are right next to each other, because Control V is paste, and if you fumble on the keyboard, you could actually paste and wipe out a value that you don't mean to. So in the case of copy and paste, I really don't like those function keys unless basically if right click is disabled, then you really have no choice. So you can either do Control C or right click and choose copy. Left click on the next cell, scroll down, hold Shift, left click, you've selected those. Now you can either do Control V or you can right click and you paste. But very important, you've got several options here. You just want to do paste. You don't want to do paste values, and I'll explain why in just a minute. So do paste and watch what happens. If you click on the next cell, A3, month formatted. Okay, so in other words, whereas we typed in A2, it realized that since you were going down the column, you wanted A3, A4, A5, A6, and we're confirming that it's correct because this is cell 6, this is column A, or should I say this is row 6, and there we go, A6, so it matches. So it did that change for you. You didn't have to manually type it in every time. Okay. Now, this still isn't quite right. If you send this to someone and for some reason column A gets deleted or changed, these will be recalculated. So generally speaking, you don't want to keep a calculated value when you're sending something to another person. You can if you want to, that is absolutely your choice, but you have to be aware of the proficiency of the person you're sending it to, that means they could actually potentially break it. So you may want to keep a master copy for yourself and then save a version that you send to other people that has the calculation stripped out. How do you do that? Left click the top, scroll down, shift left click the bottom, right click, copy, right click, and now we choose paste values. It looks the same, but watch what happens. Up here, the calculation is gone. It truly is now the value of June. Now, maybe instead of trying to extract the month, you want to extract the hour from a timestamp. Why would you want to do that? A variety of reasons. Maybe you're looking for activity level between certain hours. Maybe it's a staffing report or a sales report. You're looking at some kind of activity between various hours, and since staffing is often a function of activity, whether it be sales activity or technical support or whatever, you might have to break things down by hourly segments. Say you have a timestamp. So we're just going to put in a random time, say 9:26 p.m. Okay, we're going to use a similar calculation, a similar function that we did for the month. So the equal sign, again, because you're calculating a value, the word text, the cell that you're taking it from, in this case it's C2. And this is a little bit messier to look at because if you just use the letter H or a series of H's, basically what it gives you is a 24-hour cycle. And that's not necessarily that neat to look at. Military people, yes. Everyone else, not so much. So if you want it to show a time and then have AM, PM appended to it, you do the quote like in the other one, and then you do a single H, but then you do AM / PM, quote, parenthesis, enter, and there you go, 9 p.m. Want to make sure that it's working? Let's try 10:05 a.m. We take this, we copy, we paste. Sure enough, 10 a.m. And just to demonstrate that it doesn't work if you don't do that, we'll retype this. So text, and that is C4, and then we do, say, a single H. Well, it gives you 11, but copy, paste, gives you 23. So this is what I was talking about. So it looks fine when it's AM, but when it goes to PM, suddenly you get this 24-hour clock. So to avoid that, if you wanted to actually say AM and PM, then this is what you would need to do. And then again, you can just copy this, paste values, that way you wipe out the calculation. So I think that's about it for one video. We looked at some efficiencies when you're creating a series, when you're trying to extract a month and hour from timestamps and date stamps. You can do that, and how to do the formatting. So I think that should about do it for now. If you have any questions, just let me know.